So last year, when I presented at Escape 2016, I had just passed my Scrum Master exam, and I had done research on Agile delivery associated with business analysis and project management. And I introduced you to terms like swarming, scrumming the scrum, the happiness factor, and maximizing the amount of work not done. It's a year later. I'm working on a team, working for a large monolithic organization, striving to adopt Agile principles, but really struggling with the adoption rate. So what was I going to do this year? What was I going to talk about? Then it hit me. The theme is cloud computing. So I went and I did some research on cloud computing, and specifically what it means to analysts and project managers. So I invite you to come and listen to some of the terms that I'm going to share with you this afternoon. I'm going to take you on a journey. It's going to take about half an hour, and it spans approximately 20 years. So if we look at my spiral diagram, in 1996, cloud computing was coined for the first time. It was actually a phrase that was leaked from an internal document from the hardware company Compaq. Interestingly enough, it was also the year that saw the phrase servant leadership. And if you attended my presentation last year, or you've done any work on self-organizing teams, we know that servant leadership is a prerequisite for getting teams to deliver in the Agile world. We move on to 2001, when the Agile Manifesto came to light. Agile Manifesto is a document containing 4 values, supported by 12 principles, and last year I went into detail on the Agile Manifesto. Last week I attended Agile Africa, and frighteningly enough, this document is 16 years old, and it is still revered as the Bible for Agile software development. We skip 1 year forward to 2002. And in 2002, BBD published a document called the BBD Organizational Structure Manual. Who here knew that we had an organizational structure? Well done. I'm going to spend some time explaining to you what it is. 2006 is cloud computing as we know it, and it came to be through Amazon Web Services. I'll talk to you that a little bit later. And finally, at the end of our 20-year cycle, we are referring to something called DevOps. In 2008, it was touted as Agile infrastructure, and in 2009, there was a 3-day event held called DevOps Days, and this gave us the term that we are dealing with on an ongoing basis. So that's our journey this afternoon. I invite you to sit back and relax and enjoy my presentation. Oh, I'm going to talk to you about patterns, about Bluegreen deployments, hypothesis-driven design, Doglaunching, A/B testing, continuous integration, and continuous delivery. I'm going to explain to you what DevOps is, maybe, and I'm going to finish off with cloud computing. By now, I hope you're sitting on the edge of your seat saying, wow, Patricia, this is exciting. We can't wait. Please get on with it. But make sure that you fill the 40 minutes. Okay, so let's look at the first buzzword, patterns. So a pattern is a named strategy for a solution of a recurring problem. It has its roots in architecture, and in 1977, an architect by the name of Christopher Alexander, when I woke up this morning, I couldn't remember his surname, so I'm so glad I remembered it now, wrote a book called The Language of Patterns. To this day, it is still one of the most popular books in architecture. What does patterns mean for us in software design and software development? So it's basically, it boils down to a solution that has been written in code and made available, normally through open source, to the entire development organization in the world. So what it means is developers can use a pattern and make some alterations to it to solve their specific problem, because not all problems are exactly the same. Now, if I introduce a buzzword or a term to you, I need to give you an example. One of the patterns is called a blue-green deployment. Unfortunately, after I'd finished my slides, I realized that mine's a green-blue deployment, so it's the same thing. Okay, so what are blue-green deployments? So it is a strategy for reducing downtime and risk associated with production deployments. How does this come about? An organization has got two exact same replicas of their production environment. What you can see on the screen here is that there's a user, the router is routing all traffic to the green environment. So right now, that's the live environment. While this is happening, in the background, the development team, the DevOps team, the testing team are deploying and testing their new features in the blue environment. Once they've completed their sanity checking, the only thing that needs to happen is for the router to be switched to the blue environment, and all production traffic now flows onto blue. As you can see, there's almost no downtime associated with the production deployment, and it reduces risk. So let's say something goes wrong in your blue environment. It's as easy as switching the router back to the green environment, and you're right back to where you started from. I assume that my audience here, mostly analysts and project managers, thanks for the devs supporting me. So by now you're going, why are you talking dev talk? This is not for us. As analysts and project managers, it is vital for us to keep abreast of what's happening in the development world. Why? Because we want to deliver better software faster in a sustainable way for our clients. So I'm taking you further down the rabbit hole. Hypothesis-driven design is a technique that has its roots in experimentation, and it's based on an assumption. The basis for it is experiments, research, and gaining feedback. So what happens with hypothesis-driven design is someone predicts an outcome based on a theory. This outcome is then tested, and based on the feedback that we receive during the research and getting the analytics back, we then decide whether the hypothesis is true or not. So let's walk through one. So a hypothesis might be that we will increase revenue by 10% if we deliver a travel card feature via the omni-channel. Okay, that seems like a plausible hypothesis. We go through the development life cycle by designing, developing, testing, and deploying the feature that supports this hypothesis. Through analytics and feedback, we then find out whether the hypothesis of an increase of 10% in revenue is true or not. If it's true, we roll out the feature to our user base. If the hypothesis is false and it's not within agreed limits, we then merely roll back the feature. How easy is that? So what are the benefits of hypothesis-driven design? First, team buy-in. Anyone on the team can be part of writing a hypothesis. So by doing and including the entire team, you bring the team along, and you don't have to work to get buy-in further down the line. Less paperwork. Who's for less paperwork? Of course. So because you've brought the team along, the product owner, the developers, the scrum master, you have buy-in right from the start. So less documentation needs to be sent out for review and approval. Informed and prioritized roadmap. As I mentioned to you, we base the evaluation of the hypothesis on research and feedback. based on the research that we've got, we now have a prioritized roadmap that we can start introducing additional features into our product. Constant learning. Even after we've deployed a feature into production, we can continue to hypothesize on this feature, which gives us greater insight as to how things are working and evolving. And finally, because we have put the hypothesis down, we're now actually giving users features that are fit for purpose and features that they want. Oh, Doglaunching. What could that possibly be? So I don't want you to read the slide necessarily. I'm going to talk you through Doglaunching. But so Doglaunching is a technique where features are steadily and stealthily introduced to a small user base, and generally done so in production. Doglaunching is heavily dependent on something called a feature flag or a feature toggle. Who knows what a feature flag is? Okay, Helen?
Basically, you can turn on given functionality in your production environments, like at runtime.
Yes, okay. So a feature, which is a piece of code that is wrapped in a feature flag. So in our example here, Bob, and you can see this is from an American screenshot, Bob here is a user that belongs to the beta group, where Sarah belongs to the normal group, so she's a normal user. I mean, who believes that we actually have normal users out there? But, so what we've done is we've now gone and wrapped the feature for the beta group in a feature flag, and it gets deployed, probably via Bluegreen deployment. Bob is sitting in front of the app or the website, and he is now exposed to the new feature. Based on the feedback that we get from Bob, the feature is either rolled back or the rest of the user community is exposed to them. Sarah, the normal user, gets to see the normal screen. So the likes of Google, Microsoft, Facebook uses Doglaunching and the use of beta users extensively to test features and to validate that what they are working on actually is what the users want. A great benefit of Doglaunching is that complete features don't need to be held back for incomplete features. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but what it means is an incomplete set of code can sit dormant in production while the complete features are being rolled out. A/B testing. So for me, hypothesis-driven design, Doglaunching, and A/B testing are three sides of the same coin. A coin doesn't have three sides, guys. Are you still awake?
Software is possible, anything is possible.
Okay. So A/B testing is also referred to as split testing. And basically what it means is that we are giving our users two variations of the same application. So whether it's a new web page or whether it's an app, what we are doing is we are exposing both of these to users at the same time. And the one that gets converted is the one that obviously gets deployed to production. If I was you and I was in the audience, I would go, sure, this sounds like science fiction. And actually, Patricia, sometimes we don't even get time to finish our regression testing. Now I must go to Doglaunching and I must create a second website to see whether that's what our users want. It is vital that we speed things up so that we have the ability to experiment and to see where things can possibly go. Onto the stage, CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery. Software is adopted at unprecedented rates, which is placing tremendous strain on our traditional software development methods. So continuous integration is the idea where developers working on a set of code on a product are continuously merging their code into a central repository. The benefit of this is that developers are constantly working on the same code base. I mean, how many of us have lost code at some point in time? We have, right? So that's continuous integration. Continuous delivery is we want changes, whether it's a new feature, whether it's a bug fix, a config change, or whether it's when we are experimenting, into production and into the hands of our users at the earliest possible time. So this is continuous delivery, working towards a state where your code is always ready to be deployed. Did I mention that I went to Agile Africa last week? Okay, I went to Agile Africa last week. And Rory convinced the last keynote speaker to come and address BBD at the Josie Jug. So who saw Donovan Brown? Well done. Okay, so he is the Microsoft DevOps guru, and he had us riveted for about 2 hours. What he did mention is he has responsibility for a product called Team Foundation Server, who works with TFS, okay? And he has got 50 development teams spread across the globe, committing code to production for the entire 24 hours. There is absolutely no downtime. How does he manage to do that? Through continuous integration, continuous delivery, and I'm sure there's a little bit of DevOps included in there. So the teams that I've been working on and still work for, we really see deployments as a necessary evil, and it is painful. I mean, the documentation. We've got a 2-hour window from when the applications go down and the users are not working on it until the batches come up. So what can we do about that? If it hurts, do it more often and bring the pain forward. So the more we do it, the easier it gets, and the less the impact or the discomfort we feel by production deployments. Okay, what I do want to share with you, through continuous integration and deployment, the likes of Netflix at the moment, from when they commit code to a multi-regional deployment, takes them 16 minutes. I mean, that's quite fascinating. Having listened to Donovan Brown, Microsoft does it in 4. DevOps, okay. So finally we get to this colossal elephant. It's difficult to find a definition for DevOps because it really depends on where you find yourself on the maturity ladder. It's very much like Agile as well. What's Agile to you? What's Agile to me? How do we adopt some of the practices and how do we leave some of them out? What I can tell you is that DevOps exists to help the business win. The scope is broad, but it is centered in IT. It has its foundation in Agile and Lean, and culture is very important. Feedback is fuel for innovation. And finally, automation helps. So interestingly enough, automation is not the end goal of DevOps. But if you have the ability to automate, yes, you can. Having said that, you can do DevOps without automation. So while I was doing my research, I came across this book called The Phoenix Project. It's a novel that they wrote about IT DevOps and how to help the business win. It makes for interesting reading when you see how the organization starts from complete shambles and how they work to get it right, improve the way that they're working. I also found a YouTube video in which this guy, Dave Hahn, who's the Netflix DevOps guru, talks about how Netflix thinks about DevOps. And it's quite fascinating. He uses words like culture, which I mentioned before, and big data to explain how they are implementing DevOps at Netflix. I mentioned to you earlier that Netflix at the moment has the ability to deploy to production every 16 minutes. did you also know that if Netflix isn't working in the States, that there are people that dial 911? So it's so important to get your features right. Okay, have I said everything? Okay. And then finally, we're almost getting to the end of our buzzwords. Cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? It is a virtualized environment in where individuals, companies, or governments have the ability to access software via subscription, to access platforms, and to access infrastructure. The example that I'm using here is Amazon Web Services. And it is implemented across thousands of servers across the world. And Amazon is marketing this as a large-scale computing environment, which is faster and cheaper to implement than trying to commission your own environment. All our apps are running in the cloud. Okay, so Amazon, this is some of the stats that I found. Amazon, after converting to Amazon Web Services, and they did this in 2011 already, they were able to deploy to production every 11.7 seconds. I mean, that's amazing. And this is what we're competing with our clients today. Netflix are deploying to production 100 times a day, so it's so important to get it right. Before I move on to balancing cloud computing and Agile, this might look like hocus pocus, and you might go, but sure, this is like cowboy stuff. What I'm showing you here are safe, reliable ways for us to deploy software faster with features that our users actually want. So what are the benefits of cloud computing and Agile software development? It's as easy as executing a script and having a server commissioned. So we have access to unlimited testing and staging servers because it is so much cheaper. Agile development becomes a truly parallel exercise. I explained to you the team foundation services teams, 50 teams, developing all at the same time, committing code, working on different features that are exposed to the user base on an ongoing basis. They're all working in parallel. Innovation and experimentation. So suddenly there's a new feature comes along. The product owner is excited about it, the developer gets excited about it, the tester gets excited about it, and so what do? We execute code, we do the development, get the feature into the hands of the product owner, and we go, yes, this can go into the next production deployment. Because we've brought the pain forward and we're doing it more often, our practices of continuous integration and continuous deployment, development is enhanced. I practiced my speech with Peter Scheffel, and he said to me, Patricia, this is not the end-all and be-all. So I have to say, cloud computing is not the panacea. While I was doing research, I came across a case study by a company called LaserJet. Who knows LaserJet? Printers and firmware. Printers and scanners, basically. So it's hardware. And in 2008, the firmware team had become a complete bottleneck. They had marketing knocking on their door with reams of features that they wanted deployed. But nothing could come through the block pipe. So they would say to marketing, you choose your top 3 features and come back in 6 to 12 months, and we might have it for you in production. So they started this journey. And what they decided is that they had to find a centralized virtual environment where the firmware, regardless of which printer or scanner it was, could be tested simultaneously. So what happened at LaserJet is they improved their project development by 140%. They decreased project cost by 40%. They decreased individual project cost by 78%. So because they're leveraging and they're scaling, the cost is reduced. They also increased their development team 8-fold. So it still sounds pretty good to me. It took them 3 years to get this right. So the commitment to improving the way that we're working really takes culture, it takes courage, and it means banging your head against that wall. Okay, so I've explained some buzzwords to you. Who's learned something new? Okay, thank you. Okay. Why does any of this matter? What do we do at BBD? Anyone? Software development. Okay, anyone else?
Testing.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Anyone else?
Sorry, automated testing.
Well done, Prasad. Anyone else?
Could tell you, but it'd be cheating.
Oh, you saw my slides. Okay, so what if I said to you that we are actually fueling the economy of South Africa? Our clients see software development capability as a strategic asset. We are involved and driving their strategic asset. Okay? Isn't it much nicer to think that we're fueling the economy of the country that we live in and saying, I test, I write software, I project manage. I think as a higher purpose, it's something pretty cool to think about. And we know self-organizing teams, they need a higher purpose. So it's not just the bricks and mortar, it's what are we doing up there. Okay, so that's why this matters. That's why I'm introducing this to you, so we can all come along on this journey. Okay, what do you see there? And if you say a doily, you're not getting a prize.
Patterns.
Okay, yeah?
Multiple spirals.
Yes, okay. What I'm doing is I'm introducing you to the BBD organizational structure. So this is, what you see there is those individual spirals are called holons. Who knows what a holon is? Okay, I'll tell you.
We know which is not one.
A holon is something that is both a whole, and you spell it with a W, not just an H, and something that's a part. Okay, I want to finish, I'm almost finished with my terminology. So holonic is when individual strives to move and work in harmony with the whole. And holonic management is where the manager inspires the whole through the individual. And isn't that how we try and work at BBD? We look at the benefits to the organization, but we are very conscious that people need to do what they would like to do. Okay, so last year, when I spoke about Agile software development, I put the premise forward that BBD was delivering in Agile way before it became fashionable. And once again, our leaders had the foresight to introduce us to the holonic organizational structure. While I was doing my rehearsals, I got feedback. I actually got a lot of feedback. And one of the things that Tony said to me, he said, you should speak to Ralph Dominic. He really supports this. So who here doesn't know who Ralph Dominic is? Okay. Okay, so he's the gentleman sitting there with his Buddha arms. And he is, more importantly, he is the D in BBD, Ralph Dominic. Okay, so I went and I met with Ralph, and he said to me, he was doing his master's dissertation, and I'm using poetic license here, Ralph. He was doing his master's dissertation, and at that point in time, BBD had just got to 150 employees. And generally, from a startup growing to 150 employees, that is when the organization becomes, it stresses and it strains, because we're no longer a small company and we're not acting like a corporate, and we sort of have to find our feet. So he looked at all the organizational structures, and what was very important for him is he did not want organizational structure or restructuring to be associated with the way that work ebbed and flowed. I mean, we know projects grow, and then they shrink, and then they grow, and then they shrink. So we've got a stable core if we look at HR and we look at facilities, But for the rest of us, we are holons. We are autonomous teams, whether it's your little scrum team or the bigger team. We are independent, so our ways of working works in our space, but we are also interdependent. And the interdependence comes in when there is a strategic initiative. The independent teams then rally to put a team together to support that strategic initiative. I've just been the victim of one of those last week. Okay, so the holonic structure also means that our structure at BBD is very flat. At no point in time is any employee removed more than 3 levels from the executive. What does this mean? It means that no one is going to tell you to climb up this hierarchy, to get more power, to take initiative, and to become a leader. You can lead from any position that you're in the organization. Okay, I'm getting to the part that really, really excites me, and this is my leadership part. So, I came across a book a few years ago, The Art of Possibility. You would have seen I've carried my security blanket around the whole week. And it's a book about transformation and framing situations for positivity and possibility. So it really depends on which eyes you're looking at something with to see whether there's an opportunity or potentially not. This book is written, This book is written by Benjamin Zander. I'm going to run over, Aubrey. Is written by Benjamin Zander, who at the time was the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. It's written in conjunction with his wife, who was a psychologist. And it contains all little anecdotes. It's really quite inspirational to read. And he had been conducting for 20 years when he suddenly realized that the conductor is the only person that doesn't make a sound throughout the rehearsal or the performance. But the conductor is very powerful by making the orchestra powerful. And then he thought, I need to start getting feedback. Also one of our Agile principles. How do I get feedback from 100 musicians sitting in front of me? So he introduced something called white sheets. And what he would do is he would go and put a white sheet on each of the music stands and encourage the musicians to give feedback to him during the rehearsal or the performance so that he could take it and change the way that he's changing it. So the heading there is Leading from Any Chair, and I want to read a piece from the book. Okay. So this is Mr. Zander. This is my first white sheet. Sitting at the back of the cello section, when I've always been in the front, was the hardest thing I've done in a long while. But over the 9 days of our work together, I began to discover what playing in an orchestra was all about. Your shine has inspired me to believe that I have the force of personality to power the section from wherever I sit. And I believe that I led the concert from the 11th chair. Thank you for helping me know that. From this day, I will be leading every section in which I sit, whatever seat I occupy. So, in closing, I've taken you down the rabbit hole of cloud computing. I've tried to explain to you why it is important to us. And I've now moved on to leadership. So, before I finish off, I encourage you to continue learning. It's very important. I encourage you to act with courage, because leadership takes courage. And I encourage you to lead from any chair. So, is this the end? Can't possibly be. Because when I spoke to Ralph, he uses the analogy of a very good jamming jazz band, and that's how he wants BBD to work. So, if the bass player feels that it's time for him to break into a solo, his team members support him and allows him to finish his solo. But that is a story for another day. Okay, anything else? Can you, Aubrey? Can you take a kiss? Aubrey?